What's up, you guys? It's 2Bricks, and I'm here to bring you the final installment of the Skywalker saga, at least, of my microfleet series. This is a huge kind of event for me because this channel kind of almost really started with the microfleet series because a friend of mine was encouraging me to just share my little micro designs with people, because previously I had just built them for myself and for my own enjoyment, and that was really the spark that kind of lit the fire that became the 2Bricks channel. So being here now at the end of the saga, or at least the main films, it feels really exciting to me, and I do still have one episode to go, which is the ships from Star Wars Resistance, the animated show. But still, this does feel like a sort of moment of closure for me. And, you know, it's pretty exciting. So today I'll be showing you all the ships that I have from Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, and let's just jump right in and take a look at all of them. Alright, so as ever, I'll start with the joke inclusion, but it is, I mean, this is a ship in, in this fleet, so I gotta show it to you. This is the Jungle X-Hopper, and the only reason that I made it is because I made one of these in my previous, or in a different video, where I was really fascinated by the look of this ship based off of the Rise of Skywalker visual dictionary, and then I just wanted to go ahead and make one, and I just have a tiny little representation of it here with this simple pair of binoculars and a green plate on top. So nothing really to discuss there, I just wanted to represent it in some fashion. And next up we have the Treadable, which is basically just a giant tank tread that you see Lando rolling around in with his pal on the planet of Pasana. I wasn't sure initially. I thought that this was like the treads from a I thought it was like a single tread taken from a sandcrawler or something like that, but I think it's actually a purpose-built vehicle that just looks this way. It's really simply done with just these dish pieces holding in the treads, and they can actually spin, and then this just represents kind of a little slatted window doorway thing that had some stuff hanging off of it. Yeah, I mean, there's really not that much to this, but I thought it was a really interesting inclusion in the movie. And I looked it up. It turns out it is not a tread from a sandcrawler. It's actually much, much bigger than that. So, yeah, it's an interesting, weird piece of Star Wars hardware, and I think it was an interesting thing in the movie to have Lando come in all, you know, disguised up and rolling around in essentially a giant wheel, or, you know, a giant tank tread. So, yeah, there that is. Again, pretty simple, but something that I think is cool to have, and I'm glad it actually can roll. This is a, you know, smooth surface, so it's harder to get it to roll, but it does. There you go. And in keeping with the Resistance and Resistance sympathizers, I have Poe's new X-Wing after his previous Black Squadron leader X-Wing was blown up in the previous film. He's got himself a snazzy new white model now with some orange accents on it. This is a really cool looking thing in the film. We don't get to see it too much. Obviously it's all over the final battle, but it's very dark and kind of hard to see. But I really like the overall kind of look of the white and orange. I think it's kind of interesting that Poe has kind of crossed over from, he was in a pretty dark place in The Last Jedi, and then now he's got a new snazzy, brightly colored version of that. There's not really much to say about this. It's exactly the same build as my other X-Wings. Let me show you guys those all together. Yeah, here they all are, and obviously you have, you know, Luke's Red 5, which does actually make a pretty pivotal appearance in this film. The regular Black Squadron T-70, Poe's previous one with still has the flame booster attachment on it from the previous video, and then the current one here of the Episode 9 version. So yeah, luckily this one does make it through the movie, so hooray. And concluding the Resistance recolors, here I have the Ywing. This one in particular is the one that was flown by Zori Bliss in the final battle on Exegol. And I try to make it a little bit more of a slick design, a little bit more new and kind of complete looking, because I got the sense that the Resistance had just recently acquired these, because they did look a little bit more advanced or polished somehow than the previous generation. And I have the regular Rebellion era one here, where you can see the difference. On this one, I've made it so that the head is extended back further, like it is in the actual craft. It's the same piece on this one, but I just made a different color to try to indicate that the head is shorter on this one and longer on this one. And then of course I still also have my Clone Wars era chunky, fully armored up Ywing as well. So I have the full kind of 3 generations, prequel, Age of Rebellion, and Age of Resistance all together. So yeah, that's pretty satisfying. And I think that just kind of completing all of the Rebellion era craft, we have, you know, Y-Wings, A-Wings, B-Wings, X-Wings, the whole kind of, yeah, the whole Alphabet Squadron is represented in the sequel trilogy now, so that's pretty cool. So there is Zori Bliss's Y-Wing. And this is a really cool one. This is the Resistance Lucky Lander, which is the ship that was flown at the end of the movie by Poe and Janna and leads their charge of the ore box, where they launch onto the Star Destroyer and actually ride horses around on top of a Star Destroyer, which is a pretty crazy gambit. This thing is a really interesting kind of design because it looks very much cobbled together. Like these engines look like they were literally just stuck on the back of something that they got from somewhere. I have the opening bay doors, of course, because, you know, you got to have those. And then the central section here is divided into 2 halves like it is in the movie. And there's enough space apparently in here to accommodate 120 troops. And I guess we see something close to that number. The final battle sequence, well, the whole Rise of Skywalker is extremely fast-paced. The editing is super duper quick. So the second that we see these doors open, we cut away to the shot of everybody kind of already on the deck, and we don't really get to see them exactly emerging from this. So you could just imagine there's like, you know, 70 or 80 people on horseback being carried inside of this thing. And I think this is like a separate module entirely because it has like this round design that looks like it was just kind of plugged in or tacked onto the top. And then I believe these here are kind of like loading cranes of some sort. It's really hard to see. There's just a single image of it in the visual dictionary, and then the you know, whatever screen grabs you can get from the film, and we don't get to see too much in the film, so kind of had to rely heavily on that. But it looks like these are cranes, which I assume would be for, like I said, loading up cargo or who knows what. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's like kind of has a whale shark kind of look to it with the big mouth. It reminds me of a scaled down version of Han's ship, the Ervana from Episode 7, which I still have yet to build, although this is a much, much smaller version of that kind of idea with the big kind of opening mouth. Yeah, and then it's just very simply detailed at the back with the repeating design for the engines. And then you have these landing skids that are in kind of a strange configuration because you have 2 on the sides and then 1 that goes across the middle. As far as I can tell, that is how it is in the movie. I think the idea is that it comes in this way and then drops down onto these, so you kind of get this skidding kind of motion. But yeah, I think this was a really fun way to kind of stage the final battle of having a ship land people on the surface of a ship that's in orbit, or I guess the upper atmosphere or something. But yeah, really, really cool. And I'm glad to have this one in my fleet. And then moving over to the bad guys side, we have this interesting 3-legged walker, which again, we just get the most barest glimpse of in the background of 1 shot, or maybe 2, on Kijimi. But we got a closer look at it in the visual dictionary, and it's really interesting. It's kind of like a xenomorph, like the Alien from the Alien franchise, the way that the head is shaped. And supposedly it only has a single driver in it, and that's the only crew that this accepts. So it's pretty small. I want to say that in the visual dictionary they said that this thing is longer than it is tall, and I want to say that they've maybe made a mistake and flipped those dimensions, because that just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, the head of this thing is super long, and I'll show you guys the official image that we have of it, and it just doesn't feel like that the dimensions are correct. And when they were looking at it, granted it was really far away down an alleyway in the middle of a chaotic battle scene, and we only saw it for like 16 frames, but it looked like it was at least 2 stories tall. It was kind of standing next to a building, and it looked like it was dwarfing everything. So I don't know, this feels like maybe I oversized it, but it feels like this is closer to the actual size that it looked on screen than the official info that we have. But I'm probably going to end up revising this. I don't love the build anyway. It's very, very simple and just kind of bare bones. But yeah, it's such a tiny thing that it's hard to get anything else. But I do like this kind of weird sloped off section on the back. Never seen anything quite like that on a ship or a vehicle in Star Wars. And then I just have this roller skate piece, which I put in here to show the kind of asymmetry of these two weapons it has on either side. One sticks out a little further and is a slightly different shape, just like the regular ATSTs had like a grenade launcher on one side and a cannon on the other side. So that little bit of asymmetry is cool. And then of course a minifig hand for the gun, because what else are you going to use at this scale? But there you go, ATDP inspired First Order Walker. And next up we have the TIE Whisper, which is Kylo Ren's upgraded TIE Fighter model for this particular film. It's upgraded and it's called the Whisper because it has cloaking technology that allows Kylo Ren to kind of roam about the galaxy exploring without worrying about having to encounter enemy forces. That's where it gets the name Whisper. And it also has extended hyperdrive capabilities that enable Kylo Ren to do all kinds of jumping all over the galaxy while he searches for relics to locate Exegol. So that's this ship. I do like that they differentiated it from the TIE Silencer. I think it's funny that they both share, a very similar name. This one has a slightly shorter, more traditional ball cockpit, as you guys probably remember from the movie when his ship gets taken down by Rey. She cuts off this whole wing in that kind of awesome flippy sequence. And then the cockpit just sort of careens through the desert, rolling around. If he had come at her with the TIE Silencer, that would not have been able to happen. And honestly, I feel like that's the whole reason why this ship is different at all. I feel like if that sequence hadn't had to take place the way that it did, they probably would have just stuck with the TIE Silencer because it is such an incredibly cool design from the previous movie. But it makes sense that they needed to have Rey be able to slice through this wing with her saber, and the TIE Silencer is a very dense thing that really wouldn't be able to have that happen. So it makes a lot of sense. The builds are very, very similar. The only difference really here is that the back here is extended on the Silencer, whereas on the Whisper, it has, like I said, the stubbier round cockpit design. The windshield is really supposed to be more of a clear or like a dark, sort of a tinted black windshield. But I stuck with the red because on this particular design, there's a lot of red that kind of encompasses, goes around the front visor window thing there. So Lego doesn't have a trans dark brown or trans black round stud for the windshield, or at least maybe Lego does, but I don't have one on hand. So I decided to stick with the red. It kind of kills two birds with one stone. It's a piece that I have, and also it reminds you that there's red around that design. So the rest of it is really just a color swap for the gray here for the ingot pieces that make up the back portion of the wings, and then the clips that hold in the front section, and still relying on those Harry Potter magic wands. So yeah, I really like the design of this ship in universe, and I like having it as part of the fleet. And next up we have the TIE Dagger, which is the primary fighter craft of the Final Order. There's so many kind of super similar looking forces in this movie. So this is Palpatine's fleet version of a TIE fighter, and it has these interesting kind of stacked up wings. There's actually almost like there's the red that extends out a little bit, and then there's actually a second set of wings that's kind of stuck onto the outside of this. But this was already so wide, I didn't want to try to get anything to bulk that up even more. I mean, my TIE fighters are all just a little bit too big anyway, and just this felt like it was appropriate enough to represent that. I like these weird gray sections they have on the back in the official thing. I tried to replicate that as best I could here. But yeah, as it goes with TIE fighters, it's very kind of constrictive with the size. I had to kind of get something really small in the middle, and then just try to figure out how to represent all of the different details that this one has, like these little side wing fin thingies on the side of the cockpit. I don't know exactly what you would call those. Probably some fancy sci-fi name, but yeah, I think this one serves its purpose, and I was really happy to be able to get these from the official set. These new pieces that come to a nice point at the end, so you can get that nice sharp dagger look. Obviously, Lego felt that they needed those too, since they made them for that exact ship, so that was really good. And we're starting to get more of these in other sets. Like these were recently included in black with the gift with purchase Death Star 2 chase set. So yeah, I'm really glad we're getting more of these because they're very, very useful, and I hope we get a bunch of colors of these plates. But yeah, the TIE Dagger, pretty simple, not a whole lot to discuss about it. We see a handful of shots of these flying around in the final battle. Again, it's very dark, it's very hard to see, but you can make out their triangular shape at least flying across the skyline, so that's useful. So yeah, there you go, the Final Order TIE Dagger. And then here we have a ship belonging to a Final Order Sith occultist follower. This is Ochi's ship, the Bestoon Legacy. Ochi was from, I guess, a planet called Bestoon. It's not really clear, they just call him Ochi of Bestoon. So this is his ship. It's the same ship that we see in The Force Awakens, obviously, with Rey in her Force back vision, seeing this flying away and not really knowing the significance of it. Obviously now with Episode 9 we understand the kind of full context. Yeah, this was a really tough one to design as far as being able to get these engines to feel like they're in the right spot, figuring out a solution for this front kind of divided windscreen thing here where it has kind of a thing in the middle to separate it, and then getting this shape to come to a nice point here was really, really tricky and took me probably the longest of any of these ships to get this one right, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think the overall proportions, sorry, it's bugging me that this is not sitting at the same angle. There you go. The overall proportions I think worked out really well. The ship is only 6.5 studs long, so I had to really put on my thinking cap as far as how to get all the different little parts of it that I wanted to represent. Like, I really wanted to have these little fins sticking out, but I couldn't initially think of a way to get those to stick out of the engines. So just using this assembly of plates in here worked out for that. Getting the, having these gray BB-8 heads has been super useful for getting kind of in between sizes of engine nozzles. Like, these are supposed to be a little bit bigger than a stud and a little bit smaller than what we see up here, so that worked out great. This one stud here just represents a little cannon that sticks out of the top of one side of the ship. So yeah, this was a really, really fun one, and I think I was glad that we actually got to see them go inside and actually fly this thing around and get a little bit more better look at it than some of the other ships. But yeah, this is the Bestoon Legacy, and I'm really, really happy to have it in the fleet. All right, and last but definitely not least is the Night Buzzard, the ship belonging to the Knights of Ren. I was actually so pleasantly surprised and impressed that the Knights of Ren got their own ship. I just assumed that they would be flying around in a regular First Order shuttle or something like that, and when I saw this thing come on screen and belching smoke out the back no less, I was really, really happy, because the Knights of Ren are this renegade force that doesn't really owe their allegiance to anyone except for their leader Kylo, and they should definitely have their own ship, and they got one, so that's really great. I'll take you through the armament that this thing has really quick. We have a cannon off to the side and this little interesting kind of pod that sticks out of the one side, kind of adds a little bit of asymmetry. There's this cannon up on the top here that is a dual barreled cannon, and the best thing that I have at this scale to represent that is this clip piece. And then down here we have two bottom mounted cannons that serve as rear defense as well. And then up at the front there's yet another gun which kind of offsets, this is on this side and this is on the other side. It's another little double barreled thing that kind of sticks out of the side wing right here. So it's definitely pretty armored up. This thing has obviously seen a lot of action. It has this radar dish back here, and the funny thing is, when I was building this, I started to realize that it shares quite a bit of similarities with another ship that you might not initially think of, which is the Millennium Falcon. Now, obviously, the Night Buzzard, the Millennium Falcon, I get it, two predatory birds, right? But I think it goes further than that. Like the little bit of asymmetry that this has with elements sticking out of the sides, and then having these two kind of mandible shapes at the front, the way that it comes together. And then just having this kind of belching out black smoke everywhere that it goes. It just kind of seems like this is a visual representation for how Kylo is sort of this hollowed out version of Ben Solo, who rightly should be riding around in the Millennium Falcon. I mean, that's kind of his legacy, his birthright, if he hadn't gone down the dark path. So I thought that was pretty cool. The first thing that made me think of that actually is the inclusion of the rectangular radar dish back here, because I just didn't assume that this kind of ship of death belonging to the bad guys of the movie would have a communications dish on it. I know that other ships belonging to kind of bad guy forces have had dishes in the past, but I don't know, just something about that just stuck out to me, and I started to think about it. And I don't know if that's something they were consciously going for, but it's something that I got out of it. So yeah, make of that what you will. The angles were really interesting and tricky to get because the engines sit at a slightly shallower angle than the rest of the body plates. And then, you know, you have this kind of half stud offset right here with this piece coming out at the front. It kind of reminds me of one of the Knights of Ren's swords, like that kind of, or like the Uruk-hai from Lord of the Rings have those swords with the kind of hacking front end. So yeah, I think this is a really, really cool looking, interesting ship, and it definitely fits with Kylo and his whole aesthetic. I mean, if it wasn't black before he joined the Knights of Ren, they definitely would have painted it black afterwards. So yeah, I think this is a really, really cool one, and probably my favorite ship from episode 9, to be honest, that they introduced. I think there was a lot of cool, interesting ships in the movie, but this one just had a really unique look, and especially with the visual presence that it has with, you know, kind of, like I said, smoke pouring out of the back, which I don't think we've really ever seen in a Star Wars ship. All black, armed to the teeth. I mean, it's just perfect for Kylo. Oh, and of course, I didn't realize another parallel that we have is that this is seen hanging onto the back of a asteroid and waiting for the good guys to depart so that they can follow. So yeah, there you go, another similarity to the Falcon. So there you go, this is the final ship of the lot, and let's do the wrap-up. Alright guys, so there you have it. There is the collection from episode 9. I'm so glad that, considering this was the last film in the proper Star Wars saga, that they really took the opportunity to give us a bunch of new designs. Still not as many as I would like. I think that the fact that the Final Order fleet is just regular Star Destroyers with a cannon on the bottom and a red stripe is frankly embarrassing for Emperor Palpatine. I think he should have put a little bit more effort into the design of his ships. But I think, you know, the range of new stuff that we got was pretty cool. I think there's enough fan service kind of callback ships, like, you know, new versions of the X-wing, A-wing, Y-wing, B-wing, etc., as well as, of course, cameo appearances by so many of the ships that we've seen throughout the years, and a bunch that I've already done in the series. But yeah, the stuff that we did get that was new, I think was pretty cool. So hopefully one day we'll get to see some of the deleted scenes and things that were shot for episode 9. And maybe we'll get to see a little bit more of some of that incredible design work that the Lucasfilm artists work so hard to do that just gets glimpsed on screen for but the briefest of moments. So that would be nice, but I'm not going to hold my breath because the Blu-ray's out already and there weren't any deleted scenes on it, so who knows. But yeah, I think I'm really happy with this collection right now. There's going to be other ones coming down the line a little bit later on that I just didn't have time to get to for this particular round. But I think the core ones that I wanted to hit are all here. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Stick around for the next one where we're going to be looking at the ships from Star Wars Resistance. And may the Force be with you. Thanks, you guys.